Hello, everyone. Welcome to a walkthrough for one of my favorite Hour of Codes of 2022. If you have never heard of Hour of Code before, we normally do this thing called Hour of Code where you, like not just students, but people of all ages can explore or get exposure to computer science in a very short activity, normally an hour. I'm currently on hourofcode.com. You can navigate through this not just in English, but in other languages. So if you are not if English is not your primary language, you can definitely look through and see what's available in other languages too, which I think is cool. I won't highlight all activities. The activity for this video will be the Wakanda Forever themed activity from MakeCode Arcade. MakeCode Arcade is one of my favorite tools to teach computer science to students, and so we will check out that tutorial today. To access that tutorial, you can do it one of two ways. And the first way is to go to hourofcode.com, click activities, and then search for Wakanda. You can click on this and then go straight to this short link. I'll drop this short link into the description box as well so you can get there quicker. The other way to get there is to go to arcade.makecode.com and either find it up here. I think it's like the first or second one. So you can press this button, or you can scroll down and look for the tutorial and click on that as well and press start tutorial. Either way you do it, it will all take you to the same place, and that is this place here. Now, the cool thing about MakeCode Arcade is that it's block-based, so students don't really necessarily have to worry about how they're writing the code, but more about how the code is being connected to different characters or different sprites. So MakeCode Arcade is a 8-bit style arcade game engine. And when I say game engine, that means that you can build games out of it. The cool thing I like the most about this MakeCode Arcade is when I press OK, it's very user friendly for all, I wouldn't say all ages. I would recommend this for middle school and up just because of the complexity in how the code is built. And you will see that in this walkthrough. So on the left side, for every walkthrough you have, there will be different steps for the tutorial. You simply just need to follow this. If you have some English language learners and you would like to translate, or other students who have other abilities that need some immersive reading, you can click this little button here and it will read when you press the play button.
Let's set a scene background.
You can change settings for the voice and speed. You can also change the text preferences and how grammar is broken up. And the other cool thing I like about this is when you click reading preferences, you can also translate. And so when I was in the classroom, I had some students who spoke French. So I went ahead and made sure they knew how to translate these into French if they were not really understanding it in English. So really cool features. I'll go back here. So in each step of the tutorial, it'll give you a quick overview of what you're trying to do with this code and then how to build it down here. If you get stuck somewhere, you can click this little light bulb and it will visually show you what blocks should be in your code. The middle section is where you will write your code, and next to the middle section is the toolbox of where you can find all of your code blocks. They can be toggled by clicking on each of the themes, or you can actually click on the writing and it will open up that menu as well. Down here is where we will see our output or our game. We can make this in full screen by clicking on this button here. And so this will display our code in our game in full screen. And I can click that opposite button to exit full screen as well. So let's go ahead and build this code. The first step is second step is to set the background image to our correct image for our world. So if I click on any of these two scene category blocks, this will open up the scene. I can also just click on scene and it'll open up. I want this block here, and I want to change the image. So I do believe the image doesn't tell you until next step. So we'll go to the next step and see what that looks like. Let's go next. Now we want to click the gray square and then go to My Assets and select the first image. There's this really weird brown pixel here, so I'm going to actually fix it by clicking on the blue and painting that brown spot blue. You don't have to if you don't want to. And then you press done. Now, what should happen is if I look down in my screen, it will load that background image. Background images do not move. They're just there in the background. Let's go next. Now I want to add my first sprite. Let's add our first sprite, which is Shuri. We will go ahead and go to sprites and grab this first block. This block is always the block you will use in order to make sprites. I do believe in this tutorial there are a total of 4, so you'll see me use this block 4 times. So I will grab this. It says to rename my variable, so we'll go ahead and do that, rename. And then we need to set the image. So go ahead and click on that gray box, go to My Assets, and click the second image and press done. And she should be the kind player. So this third option will not change. So you can already see the complexity of MakeCode Arcade, which is a little different from Scratch because there are more properties that you normally have to change in MakeCode Arcade. So in creating a player, by default, I can change 3 properties. I can change the name of the variable, I can change the image of the sprites, and I can change the kind of sprite it will be. So that is where the complexity lies in MakeCode Arcade. If I put this in full screen, you will see that every sprite is spawned in the center. Eventually in the tutorial, we will actually move our sprite's spawning location in other steps. Let's go next. Now we want to control this sprite, so we will go to controller and grab the one block that's available, and then make sure it's matching up with our current sprite, which has a different variable name. By default, every block will have my sprite in it, and you will have to change that to make sure you're talking to the correct sprite. So I will go ahead and do that and make sure I'm talking to the correct sprite. And then go ahead and put this in full screen and use my arrow keys, and now I can move my main character around. Okay, let's move on. Now, I want to show you something that has some issues. So if I move this, I can have my character move way off the screen. I want my character to stay on the screen. So that is our next step. Let's go next. To keep my character on the screen, we will go to sprites and grab a block that says set my sprite stay in screen. Grab that here and make sure that this matches with all of my other variables. Who am I really talking to? So go ahead and change that, and then let's test. All right, my character now stays on the screen. Let's move on. Now we will add our second character. This is our enemy. So we'll go back into sprites, grab that first block. This is our second time using set my sprite to a sprite of kind. So this will be renamed to Namor. And we will click on the sprite gray box, click My Assets, and grab the 2, 4, 5th picture. And instead of this kind being player, it will be set to enemy because this character is now our enemy. We will run it so you can see the character and our main player are both spawning in the center. So we will move our enemy over in our next step. To move our enemy over, we go to sprites and find that block that says set my sprite position to XY. Drag that, put it at the bottom of start, rename or set the name to match the enemy sprite. And then we will type in for our X location 148, which you can visually see down here in the screen, and set Y to 2. You can go ahead and if you click with your mouse, your X and Y location, it will also update to that location too. Let's test to see if our enemy spawns, let's reload, to the correct location, and it does. If you want your character to, your enemy to be more visible, then go ahead and move your character a little bit down, your enemy down. Moving on. Now we want our enemy to follow our main character. So to do that, we will go to sprites and find the block that says follow. So here we have set my enemy to follow my sprites. Let's go ahead and do that. My enemy is Namor and my main character is here. Let's go ahead and test. And as you can see, he spawns and moves way too quickly. So we will fix that. Go ahead and press that little plus sign here and change the speed from 100 by default to 30. If you like the speed, then you don't have to change anything. But if you don't like the speed, encourage your students to change the speed to something that they are comfortable with. It does not have to be exactly like the tutorial. But make sure that your students are testing along the way and make sure you don't see any hazard signs. So when I have my enemy or my sprites, those variables don't exist, or I'm not using those variables. So you'll see a hazard sign pretty much letting you know that this is not being used. So you're not talking to the correct character. All right. All right, now we will add a life. So if our enemy touches our main player, we will change our life by 1. So we need to first listen to see when our enemy touches our player. Well, if you go to sprites, there's a section down here that is listening for that. It's not the same type of block as the other ones that we've used. It's actually a separate block because it's a separate event that we're listening for. So we want to read this and say, I want to see when any kind player or kind player overlaps with kind enemy. So we go ahead and change this to enemy. Make sure your students are reading to make sure it makes sense. So player overlaps with enemy. Well, I want to change the score, change the life by -1. So I went to info and grab that block, and then I will test and see what happens. Let's reload. So immediately I am dying and there's a game over. Pretty much what's happening is that the enemy is overlapping with the character, the main character, and never goes to a different location. So it loses life quickly. It's probably losing all 3 lives, like just with the snap of a finger. So we need to spawn or move our enemy back to its original location. So I can right click and duplicate this block, or I can go back into sprites and find this block again, but I'll just duplicate it because we are going to use this 3 times. So this is our second time using it. Once our enemy hits our main player, it will spawn back to the original location so you have time to make adjustments. I'm going to also just stop this because it's going to start making a lot of noise. Let's go to our next step. Our next step is to set the lives. So we will go to info and go to set life to 3, put that at the top of our on start. And in this tutorial, it is telling you to set your lives to 2. Now, I will tell you that I am not the best at playing games. I'm really good at making games but not playing. And so I could tell you for a fact that 2 lives is not enough. So this is the opportunity for your students to set what they think is a good amount of lives. So have them play and test and see what works well for them, not necessarily just going based off of the tutorial. This is where you get to have fun and make it your own. Let's move on. Now we also want to add our guards. So we'll bring both of our guards onto the screen. And so this is our last two times using set my sprite. So I will go ahead and add 2 at the bottom of my on start. 1, 2. I'll go ahead and rename them to our 2 guards. So first one is Riri. Second one. And then we need to set our images. So we'll go to my assets and make sure that our images are set correctly. So here we go. 1, 2. Okay. Now these kinds are not players. They are actually guards. So we will change our kind to guard because we're actually going to have a different event happen for these 2 sprites. Now, when I press run, I should see all of my characters spawning in the middle, and we now need to get them to move. We will actually use the same controllers as our main character, but we'll offset the 2 characters, the 2 guards, so that they're not standing on top of the main character. Let's go next. So we'll go to controller, grab this block here. And we'll actually need 2 because we're going to control both guards. The first guard, Riri, and then the second guard. But we will actually offset these. So we'll press the plus sign and read the X and Y, or the VX and VY for each of the guards. So the first one is 34 on the X and minus 53 on the Y. And then the second one is minus 68 and minus 58. Let's run. And notice I am still using the same controls, but my guards have an offset or a different distance. So they'll go, when I go up, they actually go down. And when I go left, one of them goes right. So controlling the player in the guards is a little tricky, but you can go ahead and try to play with it and see how you like it. The main character, I'll just let you know as we go through this tutorial, should be protected at all times because the main character will lose points, but the other characters, your guards, are the ones who are going to gain points in order to defeat him. So just to give you a better overview. So it's important for you to actually understand how to control the guards because they're the ones who will help you win the game. All right. So let's move on. Now, when the guards overlap with the enemy, we want to have score happen or add to the score. So let's go to sprites and grab that overlapping block and change our kinds to guard and enemy. All right. Now we go to info and grab change score by, and we get 1 point. So we also need to respawn when we get a point just because if we don't, then we get a whole bunch of points pretty quickly. So actually, you see, we lost lives, but we also gained score because Neymar is actually touching both the guard and our main player. So we need to make sure that they're not, that Neymar always responds regardless of the interaction or collision. So we'll also duplicate this block and add it here. And let's see how many points I can get if I can figure out how to control this character. Like I mentioned before, I am not the best. I would definitely change my lives to have a lot more so that, Well, I just found a hack. So if my guard just sits there, because I know where it's going to respawn or spawn to go to, then I can get all the points. I think I'll add some modifications after we finish the tutorial. But I know it works because I am getting score. So let's go next. Now, we want to have a victory once we reach 20 points. So if we go to info, we have our own separate block listening to see when a score has hit a certain number. We'll change this to 20 and say when the score hits 20, we want to destroy our enemy. So we'll go to sprites, grab destroy, and set it to Neymar. And we want to change the background image to our victory scene. So we'll go to scene, set background image, and then click on the gray box, go to my assets, and find that Boston scene here. And let's see if I can get it. There we go. Did a little quick cheat. So our character will hit guards will earn 20 points, and it should destroy Neymar and then change the background. Yeah. So let's continue on. We know that works. And now we want to also add a game over application. So if we go to game and grab game over, we'll toggle this from lose to win. And it will also do like a game over scene, but it will say you win now instead of you lose, because you lose once you lose all your lives. And so it's kind of like the similar idea, but instead of losing, you win. Now, we'll also add some extra features saying Wakanda forever, we're safe, and things like that. So you'll go to game, grab long text, and say we are safe. And if you want a character to say something, you can go to My Sprites and grab My Sprites Say. Make sure it matches the right character, which is our main character. And say Wakanda forever. And make sure that you set how long you want this to run. 5,000 milliseconds is pretty much 5 seconds. And if you would like an animation, you can put true if you'd like. It's just for fun. So let's go ahead and reach that 20. Oops. So you can see. Let's have her. There we go. Do this much quicker. So you win, new high score, but it didn't change the background. So actually, I'm going to change the order. I think it shows it this way, but as I test it, I don't like that order. I'm going to move the game over to the bottom because I know that once I change that order, it will make sure that the image is displayed, the text is displayed, and then it'll say game over. So I like this sequence better. So I'll show you. Let's go ahead and, oops. Takes a minute for me to get. Okay, there we go. I can let him get away. Get him. There we go. We are safe. You win. I didn't say Wakanda forever though. I wonder if I need to add some time, but I do know that it does say we're safe. And if you want to change Wakanda Forever, you could put it in just like a show long text, and I think that would also work. So let's see what's next. We can also add instructions. So the instructions will go at the top of our on start. I'm not going to really show this. It's pretty much just 3 long text at the top with the instructions in it. So you can see that here. And that is it for the game. When you press next, it says congratulations. You press done and you can publish your game. I'm going to do some modifications so that you can just see what is possible, because students can go ahead and add more things. One thing is this whole hack of our enemy respawning in the same location. So if you would like for your character to respawn in a different location, we need to add some form of randomness. Now, I do believe we don't have access to all of those blocks for randomness and things like this. So I'll go ahead and press done so that I have access to all of my other blocks. Now, these blocks you learn over time, but since I've used MakeCode Arcade for several years, I can definitely navigate this and show you some modification possibilities. So we are talking about Neymar spawning. So by default, it always spawns at the same place, where X is 148 and Y is 2. So I want to add a form of randomness. Well, where do I find that? I can search, because there are a lot of blocks. I'm going to go ahead and type in the word random and see if I can find a block that will help me. Well, we have this third block called pick random, and I think that will help us. And I can add those blocks into any of these locations. What I really want to change is the left and right of where he starts. I still want him to start at the top. So that means I don't want to change my Y. I only want to change the X. So this pick random will live in the X location. Now, you need to know what ranges you have, what ranges are possible. So I'll go ahead and click on X so I can move my X and Y to see what my minimum and my maximum are. My minimum is 0, but I don't want to use 0 exactly. I'll do maybe a little offset of like 10. And my maximum for X is about 153. I like where my maximum is at 148, so I'll keep that as my max, and my minimum will be about 10. So I'll go ahead and put this pick random in X and change it from 10 to 148. Let's see if that works before I apply it to my other 2 respawning codes. Oops. Let's go ahead and run. When you're out of the tutorial, where you run is actually different. It lives on the left side. This is where the tutorial was, so a little bit of a difference of where things are. So now, if you notice, every time I reload, I have Neymar respawning somewhere at the top. So now it's not as predictable. And right there, that also increases your hardness of the game. And here we go. Now, there was a glitch because he still started to respawn after we overlapped with him. So we need to go ahead and add that pick random. I could duplicate it to our other respawning sections down here. Now, the last thing I'll show you is what if you wanted to have like a bonus, maybe a bonus life appear on the screen. So maybe we have 1 life that spawns. I think this is like the easiest thing to do. You have 1 life that spawns in the corner, and you can use that 1 life whenever you need. So we need to add a sprite to be able to spawn that item. So we'll go to sprites, grab our first block, drop it into on start. This is going to be, I'll call it bonus life. No spaces. Oops. If you want to have a space, you can't, but you can do an underscore. All right, change this to my assets and grab this coin. I think it's actually, vibranium. So I'll just add vibranium as my um, extra life. And then change his kind from player to, we could do food. I feel like food makes sense. Or you can make a new kind if you want. I'll make a new kind since it makes more sense. I'll call it bonus life. I'll just call it bonus. All right. And that will spawn in the middle. So we would like for it to, I want it to spawn someplace else. So I'll go to sprites and grab set my sprite position to, change it to bonus life, and move my cursor down. I think I'll put it here. So let's see if it spawns correctly. There we go, it's down there. And now I just need to create an interaction with it. I'll scroll down here and make my overlapping thing. So what I want to say is find overlaps. Here we go. You have a lot more blocks to use when you're not in tutorial mode. So it can be overwhelming. So I do like tutorials for students just in case if they're overwhelmed by the number of blocks that are available. So we're looking to see when the player overlaps with the kind bonus. What we want to do is to add a new life in our info. So we'll say change life by, instead of -1, +1. Also destroy the coins so that or the vibranium, so that you can't get another life, or you can actually respawn it, meaning have it go to a different location. So do something like set position to a pick random. I encourage you to try it. I won't show it because I want you to see if you can figure it out. So I'll just have it destroy. So I'll go to sprites, find destroy. If this is overwhelming and you can't find it, you can also just type it in the search, destroy. There we go. And I want to destroy our bonus life. There we go. So let's run it and see if it works. Yep, got that extra life, which I know I need. And you can also, in the modifications, make it more than one life if you would like. You can also make it respawn, like I mentioned before, go to a different location, because you now know how to do that with Neymar. And I encourage you to make this your own. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I would love to do more Hour of Codes and walk you through different activities and how you can modify it and make it fun with your students. Like I mentioned before, I love MakeCode Arcade, and I'd love to do more of these. So like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you soon.